and gents, welcome back to the alternative paper review. That is the trading name for an aged, haggard old bastard who shouts to himself in a public park. Two things before we kick off in earnest. First, make sure that you're subscribed, because 80% of the people who watch these videos are not yet subscribed. And the second thing, today's question for the comments section is a question. I want to know your thoughts. What do you think is about to happen over in the United States? What is this all the prelude to? Okay, let's take a look at the hate rags, shall we? First up to Murdochian fan fiction pamphlet The Sun today, who reports on refugees, asylum, the cost of hotels, invasions, with this cheeky headline. Insane. Do you get it? Because an inn is old word for a hotel, isn't it? And insane. It's crazy that we're spending so much money. According to The Sun, it's as much as you would get in tax from a city the size of Manchester. Though presumably that would be a city devoid of billionaires like Murdoch and News UK, which own The Sun. Given that The Sun loses about £100 million every year, and News UK have a variety of complex tax structures whereby they funnel up their profits to the Caymans and Bermuda. Oh, I don't know how we're supposed to afford all these refugees, this asylum. It's just too much money going on hotels. Yeah. Especially since you took all the money. Anyway, this is of course the regurgitated story that the UK Exchequer is picking up the tab. It's paying the cost of housing refugees in premier inns and travel lodges. But, as I pointed out on this very channel only a couple of weeks ago, this is actually the sort of story, ideologically, that The Sun should celebrate. Because what are we looking at here? What are the actual core components of this story? It's that austerity, specifically in Theresa May's premiership, whom The Sun vociferously supported. Austerity closed, it shuttered some public services, i.e. the asylum processing centres at Dover and Calais, but also the significantly more humane facilities at Cedars and Oakington. Now, at the time, those measures were referred to as like right-sizing and efficiency and tough but necessary measures. We're all in this together. It's a bloated state. But of course, quite predictably, and it was predicted by thought leaders and refugee charities, the closure of the facilities did nothing to stop the flow of refugees, because the war and persecution that they were fleeing was significantly more dangerous than hiding in the back of a lorry or climbing in a dinghy for 45 minutes. But I digress. The point here is that where the public sector fails, the private sector will step in. It is just like slashing the funding for the NHS, care homes, PPE protective wear, Serco doing the prison run. Like when the cost of locum doctors explodes and people on the left are like, whoa, this is supposed to be the NHS, this is supposed to be your local hospital. Like, why did you sack all of the public sector employees and now you're hiring in contractors to pick up the slack at like 2-3 times the price? When we complain about that, about some Tory donor landing the contract and making like $50 million in profit, then it's like, oh, it's politics of envy, bloody lefties. But this is the exact same thing, right? It's Premier Inn, it's Travel Lodge, it's ballooning costs where the private sector have stepped in because the public sector, admittedly a Tory administration back in the day rather than the current existing Labour administration, although they show no signs of correcting this trajectory, it's the absence of a public sector solution that is fueling this ballooning cost in the private sector. The Sun should be celebrating this. Or, alternatively, there should just be a gigantic apology plastered across the front page of The Sun. Exclusive interview with the Murdochs on the front page. Big picture of Rupert Murdoch. It turns out I got it wrong. I championed austerity. I thought that it was a way of saving money, but it turns out the lefties, they were right. The savings were a false economy. For everything that you close down, for every right sizing and efficiency saving that you think you're making, you end up having to panic hire another 2, 3, 4 people and quadruple the price. It turns out you fellas were right. And for that, I am sorry. I apologize. That's when we should step in and go like, and we're also right about your tax avoidance. You're going to pay a bit more tax? Well, I'll get back to you. Over to The Guardian now this morning, who report on the dictatorial, authoritarian nonsense that we are seeing being played out in California for the last 3 days. Now, this is the story that Donald Trump's ICE agents, remember he was elected back to office on the back of the, the Project 2025 stuff, the idea that he was going to be a dictator on day one, that he was going to round up the immigrants. Like the whole time he said, if you're undocumented, if you don't have a visa, I don't care how reliant the US economy is on immigration, your time is up, okay? No more hiding. I'm going to send out ICE agents. They're going to round you up, deport you to Honduras and Haiti. And in spite of this 1930s Germany rhetoric and his commitment to build camps. He literally said he was going to build camps for them. There were organizations springing up like Latinas for Trump. Do you remember that? Like Mexican, Honduras, Latinas who were like, oh, I like him. I like him. Yeah, he's very Christian. And we're down with the Christianity, so he's my guy. Anyway, now, since then, obviously, we've all seen the footage, sometimes of people who voted for Trump, either getting rounded up themselves or seeing their closest friends and relatives getting rounded up. It's the real epitome of that whole leopards eating faces meme, isn't it? I never thought he was going to come for me. I thought it was just all the bad immigrants he was going to round up. But we're okay. We're nice, aren't we, love? And it's really an indictment on human nature, how easy it is to get people to support a person or support a policy that is in itself just horrendously cruel if they think it will never happen to them. And then when it does, they're like, oh, somebody's got to help me. Please, can somebody help me? But it's like we were trying to help. We were ringing the alarm bells. The time for help was like 6 months ago. But no, as I recall, when that help was being offered, when those alarm bells were being rung, the help was greeted with mocking and scoffing. I'm like, that was the help, period. Back then, that was the help. This one's the heartbreak. We're in the heartbreak period now, I think. So, what is actually happening as of this weekend? So, Trump's ICE agents have gone into various states now, and they've rounded up who they perceive to be illegal or undocumented immigrants. And a lot of that stuff is easier managed when you're talking about somewhere like Mississippi or Memphis. But you would expect more pushback, more protests in somewhere like a blue state like California. So the ICE agents appear with their tear gas and their masks on. And then the protesters appear. They're like, get out. Like, this is a blue state. We love having immigrants here. What are you playing at? Donald Trump can't handle that, the pushback, the lack of popularity for his policy. But also last week he had a really embarrassing week, right? He fell out with Elon Musk. Elon Musk ostensibly called him a paedophile, said that he's on the Epstein list, which we still don't know if he is or if he isn't, because nobody's actually releasing the Epstein list. But it's inconvenient and insulting and incensing enough for somebody as sociopathically narcissistic as Donald Trump to have those kinds of headlines commanding the conversation. Like he cannot allow the headlines to be dominated by somebody else, much less somebody else who is criticizing him. Ergo, he sends in the National Guard 2 days ago. So the National Guard come in, there's plastic bullets, there's footage of tear gas, there's ICE agents rounding up mothers and they're in floods of tears. They've been separated from their kids who are at home, alone. And so there's a lot of people saying why is he doing this? What is this about to turn into? Is Trump actually vying for chaos? Because if these protests spill over into, outright riots, that means he could potentially declare martial law, right? That's the excuse. That is the device that he's going for, is that if everyone just loses their shit and starts tipping over cars and burning and looting and attacking the National Guard, then he'll get to send in the army or whatever and say, this is a national emergency. I can no longer leave office. And I have to say, I think there is probably a 60-40 chance of that happening now. As always, I'm keen to hear what you guys think. I've been saying for years now, this is not me exaggerating. This is go back, find it. There's old podcasts, 2020 around then, because I was in Thailand, but it was after the pandemic's worst bit. It might have been 2021. I remember walking around a car park in Thailand, speaking into my phone, to record it like for the party. It was proper budget back then. But I remember saying then like how insane it felt to say it. But if you looked at how the pieces were being dealt, if you looked at the possibility for disinformation, deepfakes, right-wing populists controlling narratives, if you look at the trajectory that we're on, I remember saying, I think there is an excellent chance that unless somebody steps in with another variable that I'm not considering, I was like, the course that America is on is now charted towards a civil war. Like, that is where it's headed. And as ever, it just blows my mind that, like, because it's like, who am I? Who the fuck am I? I'm just some idiot with a very modestly listened to or observed podcast, which, by the way, you should totally go and check out. It's on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and YouTube. Do a live show every Friday night. Definitely check it out. It's called Aid Thompson and Other Disappointments. But who am I? And yet I can see this stuff so clearly coming down the pipeline. And yet the only person who really had any power or ability to stop this, the only variable on that trajectory, was Joe Biden. And what did he do for 4 and a bit years? What did he actually do to prevent all of this? Absolutely fucking nothing. There were no controls put in to stop a felon from re-entering the White House. There's no press regulation wrapped around cable news in the United States. Social media wasn't reined in. It was allowed to just lobby at will. Like, have you ever wondered why, if you cast your mind back to Mark Zuckerberg being hauled in front of Congress and made to answer really uncomfortable questions? Do you remember when he still had the weird haircut and the blue suit? If you ever wonder why that whole thing just kind of went away, it's because Facebook spent more money on lobbying than anybody else. It was their biggest expenditure and they outspent everyone. Like, every year since. That's why there's no regulation across social media, but also, as I mentioned, there's no press regulation and there were no constraints put around a felon re-entering the White House. So yeah, it's a bit like, if I could see that stuff coming, why could people with their actual hands on the levers of power, why could they not? Anyway, guys, I've got to go. Let me know in the comments, let me know where you think this is headed. Do you think Trump is about to declare martial law and this is the bell curve? Are we about to spill over into his full-blown dictatorship? Or do you think, as many of my viewers do, I'm just being totally hysterical? He's just gone off on the deep end again, guys. Honestly, like I noticed that he's lost his cap. I lost my cap on Saturday at the Patreon meetup. I noticed he's lost his cap. Maybe he should invest in a tinfoil one. Forget the fact he put a bet on Brexit and then it became real. Forget that he predicted twice that Donald Trump would win those elections. Forget that he accurately predicted that Nigel Farage would return to frontline politics right at the beginning of the last general election campaign. Forget all of that. Forget all of the stuff that he's been right about. I'm sure he's just hysterical about this.